G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Broker Coach podcast. Our mission is to be the most valuable podcast in the universe for mortgage brokers. I am your host, Sam Panetta, and today I'm joined by the gentleman of finance, Mr. Matt Spears of Evoke Capital. How you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Mate, pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. I've been really looking forward to having this conversation with you, mate. Just to set the tone here. In 6 short years since launching Evoke, you've just hit $1 billion of loans settled.
Yes.
How does it feel to hit $1 billion, mate?
Mate, it's crazy. You know, if I look back over the 6 short years we've been in business, I didn't think we'd end up here, and it's been a wild ride, and I still feel like we're just getting started.
What was the trigger point to get into the business in the first place, mate?
Mate, for me, my background was banking for a long time. So I spent 13 years at Westpac. So I started as a teller, sort of moved through all the verticals of banking. So I was in retail bank, then went into SME banking, commercial banking, institutional bank, private bank, and then I finished up in strategy for a couple of years. And the strategy role was great, but truth be told, I was just getting bored. It was a really interesting role where we were working with the fintechs that the bank had put some equity into. So our job was really to work with them and scale them through the different businesses that we had experience in. And while it was an interesting role, it's just so many internal meetings. The phone, didn't ring like when you were a banker, that you weren't getting blown up with texts or emails. And, truth be told, I missed it. Like I missed the client engagement. I missed, really what I was probably best at in terms of my skill set. So, my bosses and I worked really hard not to be required. So over a sort of a 12-month period, we sort of offloaded all of our BAU stuff into the product world and took a redundancy at the end of 2019. Yeah, and I knew I wanted to do broking. I actually did my ticket in 2018, but it wasn't until, I guess, that moment where I thought that was a good exit from the bank and took the check and started in Jan 2020. In hindsight, wasn't the best time to start a business just before COVID, but thankfully we're here to tell the tale.
What was the biggest thing that you learned working at the bank for all those years, Matty?
Mate, for me, it's systems and process. Like it's having a really rigid structure. And I think that's probably what's given us the foundation that we've got and that we're growing now. It's our systems and our process are continuing to be refined, at every point. I don't see anything as finished. Like you always need to learn from a mistake or, something new that comes into market that we need to solve for. But, I think the corporate background definitely gave me that view on systems and process are your foundation. And if you don't have them dialed in and you haven't got, an SOP for every part of your business, you're not going to be operating or scaling as efficiently as you could.
Did you have the systems and processes in place when you launched Evoke?
No, mate, I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I knew lending. Like I knew how to lend. I had a Westpac lens, right? Like I knew how to do, resi, commercial, asset. Like that was my foundation. I was a commercial banker for almost a decade. So for me, like I knew how to put a deal together, but that was very one-dimensional. That was Westpac. So for me, I think the biggest challenge was understanding, what was out there. What first tier, second tier, third tier, private looked like, because there's just so much depth. And for me, that was probably the biggest challenge, is just getting my head around, what is broking, what's out there, and how can we, put the client's needs at the center of what we need to deliver upon and use our product set to get it done.
How long did it take you to unwind the Westpac banker mentality and go into the broker world mentality, given that the options are near infinite in broker land?
It's like when anybody starts, you don't know the answers, so you need to find them. And for me, sort of starting my own brand, so not joining an existing brokerage and whatnot, there was probably more of a challenge there and more of a learning curve, because I needed to find the answer. So I needed to scour policy. This is before Quickly, before all the great tools that we have today, which make that a little bit quicker and make it a little bit easier to find stuff. You're doing one servicing sheet, and if it doesn't work, you're doing another one. Like you had to go through
the old Excel spreadsheets. You go into Combank, download them.
Exactly. So you had to sort of, I guess, have your finger on the pulse of where appetite was at all times, and because that ebbed and flowed, that changed every month. So that was the biggest challenge, was sort of getting across policies and understanding where different banks played from an appetite perspective. So it's just doing the reps, which really gave me the skill set over time.
100%. And did you have any fear when you went from banker world to broker world?
Look, I think the fear probably kicked in at COVID when I went from 3 incomes to 0. So, when I was working at the bank with a partner at the time, she was working as well. I had a gym at that time, a business. So that was doing well. And then COVID hit, and I guess I left the bank. The gym had to sort of shut straight away. We weren't allowed to operate. So we went from 100% revenue to 0 and we're still carrying those expenses. And the partner at the time worked in events and she got stood down straight away. So you kind of go from 3 incomes to 0 incomes. It's a bit of a shock. But it was also the best thing that could have happened because you don't have an option. You don't have a plan B. You have to make it work. So you just got to get out there, hustle, find a way to make, some money and bring some deals in. And I think that kind of mentality definitely helped sort of lay a good foundation for, business development work and bringing those leads in.
I didn't realize you had just such a fucking tough start, mate.
Yeah, it was brutal. Yeah.
I didn't realize. Did it make you tougher having to go through that? I've been through it. It's fucking shit. You know what I mean? When you got money troubles. Did it make you tougher as a human having to go through it all at once?
Oh, look, it was definitely tough. And, you see the bank account just chipping away. I was lucky I walked away with a nice check, but I think I spent would have been like 70K, in 6 months, just, on lifestyle, on, the expenses for the gym and all that kind of stuff. So, you took a hit, but at the same time, it motivates you. I find myself, I guess, most efficient when I've got that pressure. Like even today, if I find myself, with a little bit of spare time, not that it happens too often, but I find that I'm not getting as much done as I probably could. So for me, it's that pressure and keeping myself accountable, making sure, as a team, we're keeping ourselves accountable to sort of head towards that goal, that North Star that we set.
I've got a ton of questions here that I want to ask you. They've come straight from the mortgage broking community. A lot of people look up to you, mate. I do too. You're a fucking good person and you're a good operator.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? It's a perfect combination of that's what you want in life. So I thought I'd tell you that, mate. But question number 1: how the fuck did you write $67 million in a single month?
Mate, yeah, July was a big month. Good start to the year for FY26. Look, every year I've surprised myself, and it's kind of been 6 years running that, I sort of continue to surprise myself in a good way. I'm a big goal setter. I sit down and I map out goals for personal, for business, across, 4 different real sort of channels and track them and just give myself some targets to work towards. And I always try and throw silly goals out, from a business perspective and, ones that you look at them at the start of the year and just be like, that's nuts. And it's crazy that, by the end of it, well, for the most part, we're hitting most of them as a business. And I think in terms of that month and in terms of, I guess, the business in general, it's a momentum game. Like the biggest thing I've found, and even just talking to other brokers, is they sometimes get busy and stop doing the stuff that's important, like daily business development. Like, are you calling your referral partners? Are you talking to your high net worth clients? You're like, where's your revenue coming from? Are you getting insights, from your business? So where your lead flow is coming from, what clients are, you doing those, I guess, deals with consistently, and are you staying in touch with them, and are your systems supporting that as well? So for me, like that month was purely just momentum. We had some deals push from June, but I think the biggest deal that month was sort of 5 mil, and there was a couple of those, and it wasn't one massive deal that came in and blew it up. It was really just timing and momentum that's really continued to push even to this year. The settlements we're doing each month higher and higher.
You mentioned that you keep in touch, right, with your top clients, your top referral partners. How often are we talking about that, or how much time are you spending each day with these top clients, with these top referral partners?
Oh, look, I think it depends. That there's some maybe once a month. There's some you're talking to, every week. Even in the times that you're not talking to your referral partners, you want to talk to your clients, and you want to, I guess, look at the clients that you've spoken to before. If we've issued conditional approvals, are we talking to those clients? Like, how are they going on that buying journey? Do they need some support? Do they need some introductions to buyer's agents or whatnot to help them find the properties they're looking for? Even proposals, why haven't we moved these proposals through? Are we having those conversations? And there's always parts of our business that we could, I guess, follow up with and talk to our clients to move those files ahead. But I think people sometimes get too busy and focused on leads, and leads are important, but we can't neglect the other parts of our business where we've already done a lot of the work and it's just sitting there, and we need to be talking to those clients to help move them forward and get them to where they want to be.
100%. And you mentioned before, mate, that you look at your life every year in basically 4 different aspects, and you set goals in those 4 different aspects. What are those 4 different aspects of life that you plan around, mate?
Yeah, so I did this probably about 4 years ago. I changed it. So I do health, wealth, growth, and business. So I guess health is sort of mental, physical, growth, personal, professional, wealth, what am I doing to grow my personal wealth? And then business, what do we want to set as a business for the year? So for me, that helps, I guess, set some balance goals. So it's just not all, about work and whatnot. And yeah, just to make sure that, people talk about work-life balance. I think that's a hard thing to achieve in this day and age, especially in this industry. I think you build a lifestyle that works for you. And for me, my lifestyle's health and fitness. I love what I do. I love the game of business, and I enjoy spending time with people that, enjoy that as well.
How do you not switch off, but how do you retain some semblance of, busting your ass in the business and taking care of your physical and your mental well-being as well?
Look, I'm very routine driven. I know, not everybody needs routines. Like everybody needs to find what works for them. But for me, when I started, I loved training in the afternoon. Like I was not a morning person. I like to I think I was getting up around 7 and I'd get started at about 8. And that sort of changed over the years as I got busier. Sometimes I need to wake up early to get a deal done or do what you need to do. But I sort of flipped it because I got to a point where, I was getting so busy that meeting or that gym session in the afternoon that I put in my calendar, like I live my life via my calendar in half an hour increments throughout the day, that would get pushed. And I wouldn't be happy with myself and I wouldn't feel great at the end of the day if I pushed that session. So for me, I moved it to the mornings as much as, I didn't love it probably for the first year. Like it's just became routine and it became natural. And for me, it allows me to start right. I get up, yes, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, but like I'm in the gym at 5:30 and I go down to the beach, I do a little bit of a walk, might go for a swim, and then I start the day knowing that I've done the best myself and it puts me in a good headspace. So yeah, for me, it's sort of setting the routine and then just doing hard stuff like running. Like I don't love running, but running's hard. Like, and running longer distances, it's just a mental game rather than a physical game. So for me, that's really helped in terms of just putting me in a good headspace, which has 100% translated into business and allowing me to push further.
And have you always focused on your health, mate? Is it a recent thing or it's something that you've done your whole life?
No, it's always been a big part of my life. So, when I was a kid, it was soccer and rugby and then, sort of weights training as I got a little bit older. And for me, I've always done something and weights has probably been, I guess, a part of it. And again, it's just my church. Like I enjoy going there. I'm doing something good for myself. I'll do some mobility work at the end because I'm getting older and I need to feel good. But yeah, for me, that's what keeps me grounded and I walk out of there feeling good. So yeah, it puts me in a good space.
Awesome. This next question. What is your hair and beard routine, mate? That is a banger.
Mate, is this question for me or for you? I just wake up in the morning and hope it's still the same color and it's still there.
Mine is never the same colour, Matty. Mine is never the same colour. Every day I wake up, it's grey than it was the day before.
Oh, mate, just go shorter on the sides, cuts the salt and pepper out.
Literally. All right, more serious question. How do you manage to operate at the top level across resi, commercial and asset?
Look, I think it's a skill set that I was fortunate enough to build, over a decade in banking. So as a commercial relationship manager, our skill sets are quite deep in, business finance, cash flow, trade, invoice finance, you then property investment, development, that's part of our world as well as a commercial banker. And with that comes residential, home investment and asset finance as well. So, we're working on transactions across the full product set. And I guess when I first started the business, like any broker, I was just trying to write a deal. I was trying to, start a business. So it's really about, being able to really convert those deals and deliver for the client most importantly. And for me, because I had that skill set, that's, what I was open to be able to write if that opportunity, came about. So as I started to get, I guess, some time in the industry and started to get some momentum, that's where for me, in terms of what I wanted to chase in terms of business, started to become a lot clearer. And for me, I like to peel it back to the avatar. Who do I serve? I serve business owners and I serve property investors. And most of the time they intertwine. So for me, that skill set that I had allowed me to fully service that client to the best of my ability and to what I believe is the best of the industry standard, because these clients are going to have needs that span across all of those product sets. And based on the team that we built, we've hired people that have that skill set as well. So, all of our guys have come from, major banks where they've worked in a similar space to me, where we have that insight and we're able to give that value to our clients. And we've just found, like the majority of our business has grown organically. Last year, what we settled about 250 and 80% of that was either existing clients coming back or the client referrals. Referral business was a small part of our business. And for me, I looked at that as that's a gap. Like we need to fix that. And we went harder into our partnerships, but also marketing, which is how you and I got connected.
Yes.
So we spent 5-6 months together working together, and, looked at the business and we saw that marketing was absolutely something we needed to work on, and we put a plan around that and executed. So yeah, for me, I guess the clients we serve was based on our skill set, but it's also what I liked as well. I love talking to business owners. Like I love the game of business. It's interesting to me. And I enjoy just being that soundboard for these guys that have built these amazing companies, saying, Matty, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And we build a plan and we talk to their team and we put it together. And that's, I guess, what's exciting for me and why I love doing what I do.
I love how you've articulated this, mate, because I did get a lot of questions around how are you serving multiple niches, right? And it's a common error for someone to make, to think that because you're doing different sorts of financing solutions for a client that it is multiple niches, but it's not really. It's these business owners that are property investors and they require the entire suite in order to continue to build their business and to create wealth through real estate. 100%, right? So it's a single niche that's being served with a multitude of solutions. When did the point come for you where you really honed in of like, hey, this is my ideal client avatar, this is who I actually want to work with, and you doubled and tripled down on that perfect sort of client?
Look, I think when I knew that, I guess, that kind of business was what I wanted to write was probably 9 months into business. So coming out of COVID, it was a shit show. Nobody knew which way was up. Banks were, sort of pulling lending and policies and pulling offset and redraw left, right, and center, right? Like nobody knew which way was up because we never had a pandemic at this scale before.
Yeah.
So what I found really interesting was the clients that we were helping sort of during and post COVID were able to get some really great solutions for them using our skill set, understanding what they were trying to do, articulating to the banks, in a detailed paper, their business and their strengths and weaknesses and what we wanted to do. And we got some really great outcomes. And off the back of those outcomes, we have ecstatic clients who are, our biggest raving fans and are giving us introductions left, right, and center to people within their network, the business owners doing cool stuff, and for me, that was just, so powerful because during COVID, like when I started, I was doing the online, BNI events, doing all the networking things. Like I was I was cold calling, accountants, financial planners, real estate agents. Like I was door knocking, like I was doing anything to, get in front of people because that's what you need to do when you start, right?
Yes.
You just need to hustle. Seeing the momentum that we were getting off the back of just doing a really good fucking job just opened my eyes to, okay, we just need to continue to make sure we service the client, well, up to doing the transaction, but more importantly, post. I feel like a lot of people forget that you've done all this great business up front. It's not that hard to make sure you stay within their world by building some systems after settlement to stay in touch and make sure you're speaking to them, because that's where the referral business is going to come from. You've done all the hard work up front. That doesn't take much to ensure you're staying within their world to continue to be their point of call when they're looking to do something.
And it's super qualitative, right? The client experience. But could you distill it into a handful of things that you've done in the business that do really elevate the way the client feels when they're working with you and Evoke?
Well, it's a great question. I think the first thing you really need to do is you need to you need to be delivering value at every point, every touch point. So for me, the initial touch point and strategy session is crucial. You're selling yourself as much as you are delivering a solution. And I know sometimes sales is a dirty word, but like, we are in a sales business. We're
everything is sales.
100%. We are selling, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And you need to be a great communicator, and you need to be able to communicate value effectively. So for me, it's having that initial strategy session, really getting a clear understanding of what they're trying to do, and give them a flavor of what you think is going to be the best structure for them. If you can wow them on that conversation, like, you're going to get your fact find done quicker. You're going to get your documents back faster. That deal is going to move through, the approval and to settlement significantly quicker than if you don't. So for me, I think having great conversations with, our clients initially is fantastic. You need to be, a fantastic broker as well. You need to be able to deliver a great solution. I feel like that's come to work stuff. You need to be able to deliver.
You got to be good at the thing.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, and again, that comes with time, but if you don't know, you need to ask. You need to surround yourself with the right people. When I started, I would call anybody. Like, I didn't care. Like, I had no shame. I'd look at the MPA top 100 and I'd call all these guys and I'd just be like, how do you do this? How do you do that? What system do you use? Like, I was a pest, but like, I did that because I was interested, right? Like, and I wanted to do well, and I built a lot of friendships out of that I still have today. We still do some lunches and dinners. And, I remember a mate of mine, Jordan Bay, runs an amazing business, been a top MPA broker for a long time. Him and I worked at Westpac together for a long time. I remember before the second COVID, we went and had dinner with a bunch of other brokers, and they were talking about their back office teams and offshore. And I was a bit hesitant about, offshore, should I go hard? Should I not? And just listening to those guys and the businesses they had built and the scale and the systems and the process they had built, like, that inspired me to go, wow, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I not going hard? Like, the economies of scale with using a team offshore, is insane. You have to do it. So it's all those little things that I've learned over time, which, I think has molded and shaped how we sort of go to market today.
How much of your inspiration has come from rubbing shoulders with fucking guns, mate?
Oh, all the time, like, because I'm competitive, and it's in a good way. Like, I don't wish anyone to fail, but like, I see people doing these amazing things, and it's just like, I want to do that. I want to learn from others. I don't know everything. Like, I want to learn as much as I can from people who are doing it better than me, and that's why for me, like, I'm an open book.
Yes.
If somebody asks me a question, I have nothing to hide. Like, if you can do it better than me, let me know. I'd love to find out ways to do things better. Like, I back our process. I think it's, fantastic because we've been refining it for 6 years. But I actually have like top 100 brokers come to our office, and we sit down and we just open up our back end and say, hey, this is how we're doing it. And we take that, best practice and we implement it.
Yes.
So yeah, there's enough business out there for everybody. I don't think there needs to be secrets.
No, and it's so funny. I've done this post on LinkedIn this week, and I was like, what separates the top performers from everyone else? And one of the things, and it just hit me in the face when you were saying that, was like, the top performers, they openly share knowledge with each other because they know nearly no one else is going to do the hard part, which is doing the doing. Do you know what I mean? That's the actual difficult part of it. When you were first building the business, obviously today you've got the runs on the board, right? But when you were first starting out in the business and you started to get some of those bigger clients, were you a little bit nervous dealing with some of the bigger clients in the early days?
Yeah, I was. Like, I remember I didn't have a car when I started. So I was driving my girlfriend's at the time 2009 Suzuki Swift, because that was the only car we had. We were living in Woollahra, so we only had
yellow?
one.
Tell me it was
Mate,
yellow.
It wasn't yellow. It was sort of a rusted green, but you know what I mean? Exactly.
Colour?
Yeah. I had this client who I had looked after at Westpac previously, and when I left to start broking, like, a lot of people ask, did you take all your clients from Westpac, do that? Like, no, like, I think, those, I had been out of a relationship gig for 2 years. So, I wasn't, I guess, doing the same kind of business anymore. And when I started, I think I had a hit list of maybe 10 clients. And I think maybe 2 or 3 that I reached out to, we actually did some business with, and sort of had some conversations with referral partners, but they all fell in a heap, nothing came to be. So that's where, when I started, it was all hustle, and unfortunately, you start to meet your people and develop relationships, and then you start doing some great business. But I guess the story that comes to mind is one of those clients that I had done a loan for at Westpac would have been sort of 3-4 years earlier, it was a house in Vaucluse, and reached out. We're having a conversation, and they're like, yeah, we want to move. We want to do some renovations. Can you help us? And, after I guess a lot of long nights and, long conversations with credit, we got this deal done. I think it was about a $6.5 million refi.
It's like a big deal.
Massive deal. Like
Massive
huge.
deal.
I remember getting that approval and just like looking at my partner being like, we're rich. like this is like going through COVID. You're like, oh, there's some money in the bank, and it's not, the savings that have just been chewed up for the last, sort of 6-9 months. Yeah, it was a great moment. But I remember going up to do the doc sign up. I didn't want to take that car to park in their driveway. So I parked like 3 streets over, and then I sort of walked through Vaucluse, got up to the top of the street in the driveway, and I'm all sweaty, and I'm sitting on their veranda watching the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House, drinking a scotch with them, getting the doc signed. And yeah, I love that story because it's kind of like they're the humble beginnings,
Yes.
You got to start, you got to work, you got to hustle, and fortunately we've been able to do some great deals since.
Do you feel that the wins at the start, in hindsight, they're smaller, but they feel massive at the time? They feel life-changing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd never seen that much cash come in, in a month ever. And I was just like, this is wild. And to me, that's where I really saw the potential of this broking thing could be, an amazing business for me. And fortunately, it's been a life-changing 6 years. So, I didn't think I'd be here. And I guess what I try and remind the team about also is like the settlements and, the comms and all that stuff is great. But like, we're actually in a really fortunate position to change people's lives.
Yes.
People trust us with their biggest asset, and their biggest expense. We have people's livelihoods in our hands. And I think it's something we need to think about and not take it for granted, and just make sure that, every time we're putting a deal together, we're doing so ensuring that we're setting, these guys up for success. And that's something that I feel really fortunate and proud of. We get to live each day with a lot of purpose, helping a lot of people.
Yes. I think you can't do this job unless you need to be someone who likes to help other people. It's too difficult of a job if you don't get the kick, the endorphins out of improving somebody else's life. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And that's the thing with this gig, right? Like, you think about the sugar hits. I call it the sugar hits. And that's what I love as I guess the salesperson in me loves it. It's that having that conversation with a prospect and having a really, great conversation that moves to getting their documents back. You get the approval, there's your sugar hit.
Yes.
You get the settlement, there's your sugar hit. You get paid for all your hard work, 2 months later, there's your sugar hit, right? Like, you are constantly getting those sugar hits, where when I was in that strategy role, you're working on something, you're talking about it for 6, 9, 12, 18 months, and then it comes out and it doesn't work as intended, So for me, I guess coming back to what I really enjoy, again, like people and I guess the credit side and seeing it come into action is really exciting.
And this is something I want to talk about a little bit later in depth, the future of Evoke and where we're going, right? Obviously, you're still doing a lot of the broking at the moment. Do you ever think it gets to the point where you are not doing the doing?
What do you mean by the doing?
Like being the broker, getting those hits. Do you know what I mean? Because I remember when I had my last business that I sold, and I wasn't doing any of the day-to-day stuff. And the hardest thing that no one fucking talks about is that I never got the hits, the sugar hits that you're talking about, because I wasn't doing the doing anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the most difficult thing about building the business was, where the fuck do I get my kicks from now?
Yeah.
I'm too detached. And so that's the question to you. I know what you're looking to build next. I want to dive into it, but have you thought about that? Have you thought about, fuck, if I detach myself, do I lose the kicks?
Yeah, look, it was something I guess did think about when I started to sort of scale. So, we're a team of 15 now. So, and we've just hired another broker that's come on, which we're really excited to see him sort of, do his thing. He's an experienced operator, and he's going to be great. And for me, I guess I still feel the sugar hits through seeing our team win. So for me, I'm still having the conversation, with our clients. I'm having those strategy sessions. I've got a great head of credit and ops who, make sure that our team is operating and really putting out the solutions that we need at the level, we expect. But I'm still really involved in those conversations, and I talk to every client once we settle as well. So I feel like I'm still plugged in and I'm still getting those wins, but I guess those other ones along the way, I'm getting them via our team.
Yes.
So for me, we've had a really strong focus on, ensuring we get the right people. we've hired people before where on paper they look great, had a great interview, but, the delivery just wasn't there, or, the expectation of where their skill set was, wasn't evident when we looked under the hood after a couple of weeks or months. So for me, it's really been about hiring on attitude rather than aptitude, but ensuring that, we help them succeed. What does your onboarding look like? Are you giving them the support through the systems and the process to really hit the ground running and, be the best analyst, broker support, they can be? So that's where I'm getting a lot of my kicks from now, and I've always enjoyed coaching. So for us moving into now hiring brokers and trying to replicate that success via them, that's where I'm going to put a lot of my time. I'm still going to continue broking. I love what I do. I don't see myself stepping away from it fully. I think I'll definitely scale back the volume that I'm doing over time. Yeah, I think the next phase for me in terms of those sugar hits is just continuing to grow, bringing the right people in who sort of share our ethos for doing business and serving the type of clients that we want to serve. And I feel that's going to be incredibly rewarding.
How have you change the way that you hire to improve the strike rate of the success of the people that you hire?
So I think it depends. Onshore and offshore is different. So, if we think about onshore, we want to make sure that, we're filtering and we're getting the appropriate experience for what we need. For the clients we serve, I would ideally like bank experience or somebody that's, if we're talking about an analyst, somebody who's been in another brokerage for a number of years and can really, I guess, understand in a conversation the type of business that we do. And I feel like when you sit down and you talk to somebody and we go into the depth of the type of deals that we do, you start to pick up whether they get it or not, So it's, hiring slow and if it's not working out, parting ways quick, because you just don't want to hold on to a bad hire. Like, it's just going to set you back far too long. It's going to take up, some mental space that you're better putting that energy elsewhere. You just want to make sure that, you're bringing the right person into your environment that's a great fit and has that thirst to learn, because you can't teach that.
How do you determine that? Is it gut feel? Like, what is it?
Well, I think there's an element of gut feel, like sometimes people tell you stuff and then it's not, what happens in reality. I like to dive a little bit deeper. It's not just talking about their work experience. Like, what do you do outside? What are your hobbies? What are your interests? What, I guess, do you enjoy to do outside of work? Because I feel that can tell a really good picture about who somebody is, and is that person going to really fit the team that you've built, and is it going to help take everybody to the next level? I think every time you bring a team member in, they should help everybody else get better as well, because you want to be sharing best practice. We bring people in and we buddy them up with somebody experienced as well, so they have somebody to talk to and I guess understand the systems, understand the process. And of course everybody's also there to help, but I think giving that person that buddy is going to just give them some confidence to really call them without feeling like they're bothering them.
A buddy system, I love that. And so with the broker hires, right, which is the next transformation that's going on here, what's the plan around that? How are you going to roll that out to the universe?
Yeah, so for us, I guess we've taken a view that, we want people that serve the same type of clients that we serve, because I feel like we want Evoke to be known as the brokerage that serves, business owners and property investors. And within that, there's going to be high net worth individuals as well. And saying that not every client we look after is a high net worth individual. We've got mum and dads who are looking to invest and grow their portfolios and first home buyers and that kind of thing. But in terms of, I guess, what we're putting out in our marketing and whatnot, that's our core business. And that's what we do really, really well. So in terms of the brokers that we want to bring in, we want them to, I guess, have some experience or want some experience with those type of clientele, and we just want them to be coachable. We want somebody who is not coming in thinking they know everything and that they're hot shit. You want someone that just wants to actually come in and be like, okay, wow, like there's a system here. This system works, and they're open to learning it and growing.
So you mentioned about the content, right? You mentioned that we're starting to get stuck into the content now after we've had, all this organic growth off the back of really nailing the client experience. What was the trigger point where you're like, okay, now it's time to do the content?
Look, I think it was getting more fanatical about reporting and sort of getting more fanatical about understanding, I guess, our business and where we were and where we wanted to go. I did some videos when COVID started, and they were awful. Like, it literally looked like I was like saying a eulogy. Like, it was fucking awful. And I think I just shied away from it, because, you get busy and you think, okay, this is working. I don't need to do that anymore. And that was my biggest mistake if I look back,
Really?
100%. I should have built a brand from day one. You look what like Pete and Billy and Morgan are doing, like those guys are killing it, and they're building a brand from day one, and they've got amazing brands and they're building amazing businesses off it. And I guess for me, I would definitely do that differently because I'm doing that now and I'm behind the eight ball. Like, we're fortunate. We've got a great business. We've got a great team. We serve amazing clients, but we haven't told anyone about it. No one probably really knows us as well as those other brokerages that have built amazing brands. So for me, that's kind of what the focus will look like, because all our other, I guess, lead generation channels, we're doing really well. We're just like, well, like, we need to, I guess, like you talk about, build something that's more scalable and you can actually turn the dial up and down based on, your spend, or, what you put out into the market. So for me, that's what changed my thinking, and that's why I was just like, I need another coach. I've had some great coaches in my time, and I saw you pop up, and I was just like, oh, what's this Sam Panetta bloke up there? So I think I was talking to Aiden Hartley.
Ah, yes.
So how's Sammy? He goes, yeah, he's good. You should chat to him. So then I reached out and we had a chat, and sort of off we went.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. And your content's making me laugh now, mate. I said to you before, you're getting more and more comfortable in front of the camera. I heard you fucking drop an F-bomb the other day in one of your ads. I'm just like, what is going on here, Matty? What is going on? Mentioning of Pete Savage, he sent me a message. He goes, Sam, I want to know if Matt's going to leave some deals for the rest of us.
Hey, he's one to talk.
The broker model. PAYG, com only. What path did you decide to go down, and how did you ultimately land on that path?
Mate, great question. It's one I reckon I've flipped back and forth between for the last 2 or 3 years, and I guess the question that I ultimately asked myself, which helped me arrive at the answer, was, am I building a brokerage just for scale? Do I just want to get as many bums in seats, to be able to grow this out? Or do I want to look to, I guess, really laser in to a niche and, continue to serve it at the level that we're serving it from a customer experience perspective? And, while you can probably definitely do that, via the other model, I feel like having a PAYG model, you've got more control to make sure that, you're delivering, on brand, you're using the systems, you can support that process with your people. And that's why for me, I opted for PAYG. We want to give our people a path, to run their own race if that's something they want to do, and they build their own lead generation and then they want to sort of run that. So we're very supportive of that, and that's something that we've built into the conversations we've had with the people we're talking to. But to start with, we want people to drink the Kool-Aid. We want them to come in and really adopt, what we've built, because, we find it working. We're able to, we're doing about 35 mil a month at the minute, and we're still growing because we've got the systems and the process. And I feel like our team, is not as big as some others out there doing similar volumes, but we've got capacity because we've built those rails that, our team follow and use to make sure that, with every file we're heading in the right direction. So that's where I landed on PAYG for the moment, but I think both have a place. It's just really about ensuring that all of your people have progression. You don't want to cap anybody. You want to give people, I guess, a view on, okay, well, if I do really well, this is what's next, because I think that's important to just continue to get their buy-in to you and your business so you can, continue to build something great.
And you have to continue adding value. We know that. Do you know what I mean? And I like where you're headed with this, mate. Your systems and processes are fucking killer, right? And you've got the team of 15 strong now. At the start, who did you hire first, and why did you hire them first?
Mate, I listened to people saying, "Oh, you got to hire before you need it. You got to hire before you need it," and I didn't, But I thought I did.
It's like, fuck him, I'm not going to listen.
Oh well, that's I remember Will, our mate Will Lockett,
yes,
from SFG.
Yes.
He was just like, "Matty, you got to make sure you hire before you need it." I always want another, extra couple of sets of arms and legs around, right? Because it's important, because things are going to happen.
Yes.
And I heard that, and I retained it, and I understood it. But I probably didn't do it as effectively as I thought I could. I always wanted to, I guess, scale off my trail is kind of something that, in terms of using that income to make sure I was putting that into people, where I should have really been front ending it a bit more. I should have gone harder offshore more. I think, and I talk to a lot of people even today, in the circles that we're in, where, they're hesitant to go offshore. And my conversation to them is, we would be nothing without our team offshore. They're amazing individuals and they do some amazing work. And all of them have been on an incredible learning journey. And again, the reason we hired them is because they were so open to learn. They were so open to feedback. They would make, decisions, based on their judgment and not just wait for us to tell them, this is what you need to do. So we really encourage a lot of autonomy with our guys. We want them to make decisions. We want them to make mistakes within reason, because that's how people learn. We don't want to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, if somebody makes a mistake, you correct it, but, you do so in a way that's not going to, really put them down. You want them to learn and feel like they're in an environment that they can make mistakes in, and they've got your support. So, yeah, I would absolutely hire sooner and faster. I would absolutely double down on, making sure you've got a great offshore team, because they can add so much value. Onshore hires are fantastic, and again, for me, I look at that like buying my time back. For me, I got to a point where I was working, 70, 80 hours a week, weekends, would get up 6 a.m., just jump on the computer and bang out a deal in AOL, like I was doing everything.
Yes.
But that gave me a phenomenal foundation, right? Like that's what's made me a better broker today, because I know every facet of the business. But I would be more, open to hiring earlier if I was to do things differently.
You busted your fucking ass, right? How much?
Oh yeah, it was 4 years of just pure hustle. And there was times there where I'd just be like, is this worth it? Yeah, it's nice to be, settling all these loans and having this cash come in, but I was just like, wasn't living much of a life outside of it. But they're the years when you start, you have to commit. You can't do this job part time, or you can, but you're not going to be successful.
Thank you. There comes a point where you've got to fucking work hard. It's the only way to get the rocket off the fucking ground. Do you know what I mean? I'm glad that you said it. I hope everyone's listening. This is not a part-time gig. You've got to bust your fucking ass straight from the horse's mouth.
And the first 2-3 years are going to suck. If you want, there's going to be some good times and you're going to have some success. But if you really want to give this thing a great crack and build something great and service your clients to the best of your ability, you've got to put the hours in. You've got to put the reps in, and you're going to make mistakes and you've got to learn from them quickly. But yeah, that would be my advice to anybody starting out. You're going to have to work super hard, but it is all worth it.
You don't write $1 billion worth of loans knocking off at 3 p.m.
No, there was no 3 p.m. knockoffs, mate. I think my first proper holiday was about 4.5 years in. So there was no more than 1 day off for about 4 years.
But fuck, I was on holiday this week, and I remember on the Wednesday, I finished working at 1 o'clock on my holiday, and then I went and jumped in the pool with the kids. Do you know what I mean? That's a fucking holiday, and I still worked 5 hours or whatever it was. It's what it takes to build a business, man.
It's business ownership. That's what our clients are doing too. They, putting the kids down at night and they're jumping on their emails and they're doing the business, and as much as, I think, it's important to have boundaries at times. You need to be client accommodating first until you've earned the right to say, oh, okay, these are my hours. When you start, you need to be flexible if you want to write the business. We're not a bank, and that's our edge. We're out here with all the options available to best serve our clients' needs.
Yes.
So we've got to be flexible.
100%. Mate, with the offshore team, you've had a lot of success there. You've been really supportive and you've essentially nailed offshoring. Is there one thing in particular that you think you've done really well when it comes to your offshore team?
Again, it's system and process. So we can plug them into our learning system and they've got videos to watch for the first 3 days on, I think I've spoken about this before. We have a checklist from 1 to I think it's about 130 points of our process, from lead interaction, to what should we be asking on the conversation. We've got scripts for that, all the way through to what are our post-settlement activities. What are our 1 month, 6 month, 12-month check-ins? What are our repricing and valuations look like for our clients at every, point in time? So when a new hire comes on, whether it's offshore, whether it's onshore, they plug in and they watch videos which basically step you through that process. So again, it's just creating an environment for them to win. Like we can't run a business off, a spreadsheet. You need a detailed CRM. You need detailed processes, because if you don't have that, like that time's going to come out of your day. So you're going to have to step away from doing your highest and best used activity to do the training. And again, that's something you may need to do at the start. But if you need to continue to go back and do that, and they're not taking videos of the stuff that you're showing them to do, and they're not plugging into videos that explain, how to use these portals, how to use those portals, again, you're wasting time, because that's going to compound and add up.
So instead of a team member like Bob doesn't know how to do XYZ. It's not Matt tells Bob, this is how you do XYZ. It's Matt creates training to teach Bob how to do XYZ that can be used when Jill, Jeff, and Gary come along later on in the future.
100%. And I think it's important to say, it's okay to ask me questions, but if you ask me the same question more than twice, what's going on? Are you supporting your own learning? Are you taking the videos? Are you writing this down? Are you using the resources that we've created? So, you need to give them that environment. You need to give them the encouragement to be asking questions. But if they ask the same thing more than twice, that's on you. You're not setting an expectation conducive to great learning.
Well, you're doing 300 something mil a year at the moment, circa, give or take 350, you're probably getting close to 400. What breaks when you go from, 150 mil a year to 300-400 mil a year? What breaks first?
It's generally you.
Fuck.
But seriously though, like that's probably the tipping point. So when I did 140 with me, one offshore and one onshore. So that, and I think I only had my onshore analyst for about, 5 months of that year. So it's definitely yourself, because you're doing so much. And you're needing to be across every deal. You need to be, going through every piece of AOL from start to finish. You're not empowering your team to do stuff. They're just doing sections for you to then put it together, and again, I think it's about going harder in, okay, well, maybe my recipe is, I think it's broker support, offshore analyst, and then you really start to train them up, get them tight, get them to a point where they could be the teachers of the next, team members that you hire. And then an onshore analyst that could potentially grow into an ops manager in time. Like for me, that I think is a great recipe for any solo operators out there moving forward. But you're definitely one that's going to get stretched and broken, and you need to be getting great people in there who can, be making decisions within your business, with you having the ultimate sign off. But, if you're needing to watch every single piece, you're just going to get bogged down, and it's not conducive to scale. So,
was there a hire that comes to mind where you were like, fuck, a lot of the pressure and a lot of the responsibility came off your shoulders?
Look, I think the first time was my first offshore, who's still with me. We haven't had anyone sort of leave that we haven't, I guess, had a conversation for them to leave. And again, that comes back to, I guess, hiring the right people, right? Who want to stay. So I remember when he started with me, he just took all this stuff off, and he was thirsty to learn. He was new to, banking. So he had to learn those skills from scratch, but again, had the right attitude. Then I think it's my first onshore analyst just allowed me to, I guess, not have to be so in the depth of policy at every single stage, like still reading all the updates, still making sure I'm across for the conversations I'm having with the client. But I guess I felt a bit of relief that if an MIR comes in, if a phone call comes in from the bank, there's somebody there who can jump on it straight away, and I can be on the road or wherever I need to be doing the business.
Yes, the next 3 appointments. So someone actions it today, gets back to the assessor while they're at their desk. I think it's approved on the Thursday and not on the fucking Monday, because we managed to get it back to them on the same day.
100%.
The operations of the business. Do you handle everything yourself, or do people help you with the operations of the business?
No, so I've got great help. So the structure of our business at the moment is myself as the head broker. I've got a head of credit and operations, Gav. He's killing it, mate.
Shout out to Gav.
What a legend. So Gav and I have known each other a long time. We met playing golf through some banker mates, as banker mates do. And I asked him a couple of times if he wanted to come over. He told me no the first time. Then I took him to a different bar, and then he said yes. So, I just needed to get him comfortable. But he's been fantastic for our business. Like in terms of, he's got an amazing credit brain. He's great with clients, and he's a great coach,
Yes.
and he's tripled the size of our team, in the last, 2 years that he's been with us. So he's been phenomenal.
That's so good.
Then I've got an EA that really just helps. Like the biggest challenge brokers have is their diary, right? Like it's their phone, it's their emails, and it's their diary. So I had an offshore EA for a long time, and that definitely helped. But I found having an onshore EA, with the volume that we're doing, it has just been a game changer. It's given me so much time back to focus on what I'm great at and what I want to be good at, being sort of sales, marketing, and partnerships. That's where I want to look to play. And then 2 onshore analysts who are doing a great job. Now we've just hired some more. So we've got 4 offshore analysts. We've got 4 broker support, 1 client experience, and 1 marketing associate who just started as well, just to fire up the marketing side. So that's and a new broker that's started as well. So we're a team of 15, 16, something like that.
Client experience. What do you expect from a role like that?
Like your existing clients are your, I guess, easiest source of next business, right? Like you've already done the work, you've built the relationship, you need to be nurturing them and talking to them and ensuring that the facilities you put in are still fit for, where they are in life, So we need to be asking that question. So for me, that role is incredibly important because we need to make sure we're continuing to look after our clients post-settlement, and it's not just about rate. Rate's important because, again, appetite changes depending on the banks and where they're at. But we need to be, I guess, asking them the question, like, we bought this investment property, here's where our valuations are sitting. Is it worth us having a strategy call? Should we sit down with Matt? I don't want to be unnecessarily moving clients. Like if we can optimize their rates where they are, I think that's a better use of our time. Like if we're just churning our back book, I don't think that's building, a big business.
It's not.
We're just spinning our wheels.
You're caretaker mode,
Correct.
basically.
Yeah. And I think, if we can keep a client there and there's no real value outside of 5 bips, like why bother? Why get them to pay the $700, to move somewhere where if you've got other clients that you could be serving and they're comfortable where they are, then just do the reprice. I think people sometimes just look, I'll move them every sort of 12, 18, 24 months. Like, clients don't want to move either. Like it's a pain in the ass. So
fuck, I still got my Dolomite account with fucking CBA. Do you know what I mean?
Mate. They got you.
They fucking got me. I haven't moved. 100%, right? Like trying to move clients around for a nominal, non-strategic benefit makes little sense in today's day and age. But if we've got these self-employed clients that are building property portfolios, we're valuing up the properties, we're fucking checking the new financials. If their goal is to build a property portfolio, we should be telling them, fuck, you know what I mean? You're ready to go for property, 4 and 5 this year because you've had a cracker year in business and you're 500 grand up on your property portfolio. So that's the client experience manager. That's what they do.
That's right. So they're really generating opportunities, from clients that you've already, done the hard work with, and that's why, again, I like the business owners and property investors because your lifetime value is longer. So if we start looking at, our revenue generation, we're going to be working with these clients who want to be active. They want to continue to grow with you. And I say, to every client when I have, a conversation with them when we settle, it's like, this isn't the end of our engagement. Like this is just the beginning. We've just started working together because we've just put the foundations in to really, grow and head towards the goals that you want to hit.
Perfect. Mate, we spoke about a lot of the organic lead flow from nailing the client experience really compounded and took you a long way. And then content starting to come online over the last little bit, which you're doubling down on. But you mentioned earlier that the referral partners at the start were a smaller percentage and you really wanted to concentrate on that. How did you concentrate on the referral partners and what does that look like now in your business?
Yeah, so for referral partners for us, it's always been an avenue that we've, put a lot of time into building. I think when a broker starts, they say, okay, I need referral partners. Like I need people to send me business because finding business myself is tough.
Yes.
Right. And it is. And I think referral partners are fantastic and we've got some amazing ones. And for me, it's been really important to, I guess, build partnerships where they're true partnerships. It's not just like, a give and take mentality. We want to really support their business and their clients to deliver for them because we're an extension of our partners. And likewise, if we send them a referral, we're confident that because they're an extension of us, they're going to give, our client a great service. So for me, I've had the same sort of view all the way throughout, I guess, broking. It's about setting a panel. It's just like a bank. They've got a panel of valuers. They've got a panel of lawyers. You should really have a panel of partners for your clients. So, who's your solicitors and your conveyancers? Who's doing your wills and estates? Who's your financial planners? And different clients are going to vibe with different people. So, who are your buyer's agents going to be? Who are your whoever, you need that, I guess, level of depth in your panel. And I don't think you don't want like 5, 10, 15. I think you just want 2. Like 2 is great, 2 that you continue to talk to and refer to and work with. And again, just really delivering for the clients. And that's just going to breed more business. They're going to see, the work you're doing, and they're going to see that you're making their job easier. You're making them, more money or sales or whatever it may be. And they want to do more business with you. So for me, that's probably what I've found is we worked with a lot of people over the years, but the people that we've got at our core, we're continuing to work with them because we're serving similar clients and we're adding tremendous value. We can jump on the phone and say, hey, we're putting the strategy together. What do we think? I talk to clients about building a team. You want your financial planner, you want your accountant, you want your buyer's agent, you want your solicitor, you want your broker, and you want them to be on the same page, and you be that nucleus, because not one person can give you the advice across the full spectrum of what you need, nor do you want to at times. You want to make sure that, you can be that center of the journey, and we can sort of talk to those people at different points in time to, get the best advice and the best solutions.
Yeah, nailed it, mate. That's how you do referral partners. That is a lesson 101 in referral partners. When you're hiring, what's the makeup between hiring people that have got a track record or people that you're training from scratch?
Whether it's from scratch or if they're experienced, it's probably just understanding where their baseline is. Like what are they great at? And what are they not so great at? And what skills do we need based on, what we do and how we go about the transactions? We had an onshore analyst who was really great at sort of low doc and non-conforming stuff. And we do a little bit of that, but it's not our main, source of business. I'd say, for the most part, 80, 90% of our clients are, full doc, prime, whatever you want to call it. We do a little bit, but not a lot. So for him, it was really learning about, okay, well, how do we put together our capacity emails? Why do we do phase 1 and phase 2 when we're putting together these strategies? How can we use banks and non-banks effectively? What does it, company and trust structures and all that look like? That's was his sort of deficit. So for us, it was about really leaning into, okay, well, this is why we do this and this is how. This week I was doing a strategy with a doctor. And we're sitting down and we're running through, okay, this is your current setup, this is where you want to go. And we're talking about resi and commercial property and how we can use dividends that he's generating out of his company to sort of put in the bucket and drive that strategy. And I just brought the guys in and just sort of put the client on speaker and said, hey, I've got my team here. We're just going to run through this. And they learn from that. They learn why we're, I guess, looking at deals a different way and why we're asking the clients, those kind of questions. Because, the clients sometimes don't know what they don't know. You need to bring that out of them. And once you really get to the core of, I guess their issue or what they want to achieve, that's when we can effectively give them that structuring advice to get them there.
Yeah, there's 2 things that come off the back of that. So number one is how important it is to have that niche, right? Because those sort of conversations that you're having over and over again, you wouldn't have those conversations if with the first home buyer. It'd be very different. Yes. Do you know what I mean? It'd be very different. How important to the pace of growth at Evoke has been nailing the niche?
Well, I think it's super important. It's super important. And while the conversations are a little bit different in terms of their I guess, end point, I still think the way in which you go about having those conversations is still very similar. You still really want to ask the client, what are you trying to achieve? If you're buying this home, is this the forever home? Is this just a stepping stone? Do you intend to live in this home for the next 5, 10 years? What are you thinking around that? And I guess those answers to those questions are going to really drive, how we look to use this facility. If they're going to live in this house for 2 years and move to Dubai for 10 years, then maybe we should have this as interest only and be putting the cash in the offset because we don't want to pay off that future deductible debt, or if this is going to be their forever home, we just want to pump the money into the loan, and just have a rapid amortization strategy to clear this debt, as soon as we can. But we can only, I guess, properly advise clients once we ask the right questions and we really dig into what that need is. And sometimes clients don't know what that need is. We need to bring it out from them. I talk to investors every day and they're just like, I just want to build a portfolio of 10 properties. And I was like, what does that mean? What does 10 properties mean? Oh, well, I just don't want to work forever. Okay, cool. I was like, what does it look like if you stopped working? Like, what would you need? I need 150 grand from property. Okay, cool. Like, that's what we're working towards. So we need to go, okay, well, 150 today is not going to be 150 in 20 years time. What does it look like inflation adjusted?
Yes.
And then you work back, and then it comes back to having that initial conversation with the client and giving them that wow moment. And if you can sort of take them to that place that they didn't even know they needed to go, I feel like you're getting clients for life, you're getting advocates, and that's going to give you business over time.
They wouldn't even expect to be given that when they come and talk to a broker, I don't think, for the first time. Do you know what I mean? So if you're reverse engineering what their actual fucking goals in life are to, hey, these are do X, Y, and Z and you'll achieve A, B, C.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, right? That's strategy.
Yeah, 100%. And look, the thing is, you need to be careful, right? Like, we're not accountants, we're not financial planners. So we need to be making sure that we're bringing their team along for the journey to make sure it's all compliant and keeping our nose clean. So that's super important. But, a lot of the times they may not be asked that, so we want to be that catalyst for change if they've just been doing the same thing for a while and it's not working. And that's where, you can start building those relationships with their team. And that's how you develop partners as well. I feel like that's the easiest way to develop referral partners, is just do a really good fucking job for your existing clients. Integrate yourself with their team and tell them what you're doing and bring them along for the journey, because you're going to make them look good. And if you make them look good, that client's going to stay with that accountant or financial planner, and then they're going to want to work with you because they know how you think and they know how you act. So I feel like that's the best way to build a referral business.
That's 100%. You mentioned that you get the team together when you're on one of these strategy calls and learn by osmosis, basically. You're here in the city, down the street, in your office. How important has it been to have a physical presence in an office, mate?
I didn't want it. Like, I was pretty happy just, waking up, going on the beach, going to the gym, going for a swim and sort of, working away in my activewear all day. But we grew to a point where there was a lot of value in being face-to-face, and like the learning has just like, shot up in terms of the uptake, especially for the new guys, having, I guess, that face-to-face time. So we do it Monday, Tuesday, Friday in terms of being in the office. We do Wednesday, Thursday at home. The reason for that is I like to start strong. We're all in, we get set for the week. We know what we need to do. We understand what roadblocks we need to get done. And, at the end of the week, we sort of bring it home. We have daily meetings as well. I know that's probably not something that a lot of brokers do, but we have a 9 o'clock whip every day where we run through all the deals that we're working on, and we get sort of really clear on what our priorities are, like what clients do we need to talk to and what do we need to move forward. And I've been doing that for 6 years. When I started, I would have meetings by myself, and I'd just sit down with a spreadsheet saying, okay, how many people I'm going to call today? How many connects am I going to make? I really modeled my outreach based off the real estate guys because I feel like they do it best, right? So I listen to a lot of podcasts in that world because I feel like they are some of the best marketers and best, I guess, sales outreach guys out there. So that's what a lot of our systems and processes are driven off. And again, it's just you're measuring stuff, you're holding yourself to account, and that compounding over time is, I think, what really adds value.
Do all 15 team members come to that morning huddle?
Yep.
How long does a morning huddle go for?
Half an hour.
And what are you looking to get out of it?
Just direction. So we know every part of our business. Like, we know all the valuations we've got on the go, all the, I guess, the discharges we've got on the go. They're all moving the right way. We've looked at every single deal from ready for settlement, all the way through to preliminary assessment to be lodged. I guess the leads and prospects, I look after that with Shan, my EA, but the rest of it, the team are actively working on. So, and then they will sort of break off, and like credit will have a meeting, and I guess Shan will have a meeting with our broker support for the docs that we're chasing for the clients. And that's a big one. Like, we do all the work to have a great conversation, but sometimes clients, don't get us stuff as quickly as we need them to, right? So we need to make sure that we're following up because we've done all the hard work. We don't want to let those deals just fall through the cracks. And there's been documents that we've chased for, 3-4 months, and, we get them and we put a deal together. So it's worth putting that time and effort into continuing to follow up with them. But that's incredibly important. We do that every day.
Are you telling me that follow-ups work, Matty?
Mate, they work. They work.
Don't
tell them you're just following up. Like, they hate that. Like, look, you had that conversation with Matt. Are you still looking to do something at the moment? Oh yeah, I still want to do something. Okay, great. Like, you give me half an hour of your time and complete the client portal, and we can take care of the rest.
Yes.
We need a half an hour investment from them, and that's what we can do to move them forward.
And I really want all the new brokers that are listening to this. Is this a fucking man? He's doing 35 mil a month, right? $1 billion in loans settled, and he still follows up. You got to get
Every
it
day.
done. You got
Every
to get
day.
it done.
Every day. And like, I still get on the phone. Like, I have an hour and a half blocked out every day to be doing that outreach. So every day I'm either calling high net worths or, like I said before, conditional approvals, proposals that are out there, people that, aren't getting us documents when they've gone through our process with our broker support, our onshore team. Like, I'll do the final call and I'll be like, hey, like, we had that conversation. We had a great conversation. What are we doing? Like, why haven't you given us what you need? And I think I did 3 of those calls yesterday, and 2 of them are, getting the information, right? So it's one of those things where, it's powerful you having that conversation, and I don't think you can expect to fully remove yourself. And it's important if you want to push the business forward to still be involved.
100%. Do you ever get any of those clients that love a little bit of tough love? You send them a text like, send us the fucking docs, mate, and then they send it straight away?
It depends on who they are. Generally, the clients that have been with me for a long time, I was like, mate, what are you doing? You kill them a lot. Like, give me these docs so we can move it forward. Otherwise, you're not going to settle next week.
Start sending them gifts and shit.
Yeah, mate, you do what you need to do, 100%.
Your systems and processes are amazing, and your ability to track metrics is, we've spent some time under the hood, right? We've fucking pulled the spanner out. What are some of the most important metrics that you've tracked?
Look, I think it's just getting the basics. It's understanding, what kind of lead flow do you need? What's your average deal size? What type of conversion rate are you looking at from, meeting to proposal, from proposal to settlements? It's just the basic stuff, so you can get a really clear view on what kind of, I guess, actions or outputs do I need to see to be able to ensure that I'm going to be getting the settlements that I'm after. So yeah, it's just getting an understanding of your business. And that's what I think as an industry we struggle with. We don't have great reporting. We're doing a lot of work at the moment with Power BI to really build some bespoke insights for us to give us, that clarity as we grow. But it's knowing your numbers. Like, I used to track this stuff with a whiteboard, on a wall, update a spreadsheet and sort of, move that through so I could track, all the average deal sizes and the leads and the flow. But yeah, I feel like those basics are important, because if you know what your average deal size is, you can go, okay, and you know what your conversion is, you can, again, reverse engineer it and go, okay, well, I need to be getting 30 leads to achieve what I want to be achieving. So how do I get 30 leads? If everything else is working really well and I back myself to convert at that level, I just need to get the lead flow, and that's what you need to focus on.
What do you do if you're at tracking at 20 leads for the month and you need 30? What's your go-to to plug the gap?
Get outside. You get in the car and you go and talk to people, right? Like, you get it. I think as a business owner, your finger is always on the pulse of your business. So you get a sense of when, like, you've got great momentum or when you need to, pull your finger out and go and do something. So, if when I've had those moments, I've gone, okay, like, I need to go and see people. I need to set up some lunches, some coffees. I need to get on the phone. I need to, now do some more social media and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those things where you need to continue to feed your business. And that's where if you stop doing something, you can't expect there to be the same level of lead flow in 3 months' time, because our business has a lag effect, So our settlements today are from our inputs of, 3-4 months ago. So that's where you need to have consistency in your outreach, in talking to your partners, so you can have a consistent business.
Yes.
Like, you don't want those feast or famine kind of peaks and troughs, because it's just not going to be great for your mental health, and it's not going to be great for, building a sustainable business.
Oh, mate, you know what it is with the peaks and troughs, and it's notorious in the mortgage game, right? Especially when you're not building teams. It's when you're small and you're by yourself, the peaks and troughs are annoying, right?
100%.
But when you're big, when you're 15 strong, they're fucking dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're dangerous. When you're running, 100 grand, 150 grand, whatever the cost is to run the business, if you're not hitting target, it's no longer annoying. You're putting the business at risk. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a maturity of it of, do the work sort of thing.
Yeah, and keep some cash in the bank as well. Have your buffers. It's just like investing.
Yes.
Put some money away for tax. Like, do all the basics come to work stuff, which, is going to keep the doors open. Yeah, as you get bigger, your payroll, increases.
Yes.
And it's just one of those things where, you just need to protect it. Yeah, it's important to know where you're at and what you need to do to keep it on track.
100%. If you had to start from scratch today, what would you do in your first 30 days?
I would document the journey. Morgan
Owen would love that.
Maybe
if she was listening, she would fucking love that.
100%, 100%. You look at what she's done, like what Harley's doing,
yes.
What they're putting out there is incredible, So, and people resonate with that stuff. So, again, if I was to do this all over again, it would be socials, 100%.
Where do you see the future of the brokerage model going, mate?
Look, it's a good question. I feel like, AI gets thrown around probably too much. I think AI is going to change, the game of business. It's going to change everything in our lifetime. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. I think it's definitely going to happen in the next 10 years, but I'm not sure when. I saw something on the news the other day. It was this US senator talking about the hype around AI is more to drive investment into data centers so they can build all this infrastructure rather than AI actually disrupting everything in the next sort of 2-3 years. So whether that's true, I don't know. Look, I think in terms of where the mortgage broking industry is going, it's just advice. It's heading more down, I guess, brokers continuing to be looked upon as trusted advisors in a financial planning or an accounting setting. We've got 80% market share now. There's such a strong value proposition for clients to use brokers over going to direct to bank, having access to 100 banks and thousands of products versus one banking lens and one set of products. I think in terms of solo operators versus bigger groups, I think more bigger groups are going to start to come up, especially, with AI and with socials being so prevalent. So, I think we'll probably see less individual operators and more bigger groups start to rise and do really well. But I think it's an exciting time as well. We've got so much, I guess, digitization versus where we were 3-5 years ago. Like a lot of brokers now don't print documents.
I was going to say, do you remember printing those CBA docs? Fuck.
Oh, mate, it's killed my life, and then you got to jump out in the car and you're losing so much time where now you're able to do so many meetings, get the DigiDocs out there, you can just move at such a quicker pace. And you look at what all these amazing brokers are doing, in the top 100, in terms of volume and deal size, like it's wild, so that's where, it's really exciting. And I think, people looking to join those groups that they resonate with and learning from to really build an amazing career.
With the increase in the super brokerages that it's coming, right? It's here. We can see it, right? For anyone who's watching, they can see it. What's going to be the competitive edge that sets the winners apart in that space, mate?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it's all about how much value are you delivering for your team. How are you delivering that value? It's not just a bum on a seat anymore. What does it look like in terms of lead flow? What does it look like in terms of culture? What does it look like in terms of, I guess, the business that you're building in there? I think there's so many variables, and for me, I ask myself, when we're looking to grow and scale, how can we continue to add value and really offer something compelling to the market where people are like, yeah, I want to go to work, I want to have a lot of fun, but I also want to feel really fulfilled and come home knowing that the fruits of my labor I'm taking with me. So
fuck deals, systems, culture. Maybe that's the trifecta, Matty.
Absolutely, I think it is. People, that they want to work with other high performers, and that they want to do well at life. Those competitive, I guess, people are going to really want to seek that out over time.
100%. One last question. I ask everyone this one. If you had to give one piece of advice to little Matty, what would you tell him?
I think if I was to give myself one piece of advice, it'd probably be to dream bigger, and be fearless. I guess what I've learned as I've gotten older is, that there is no caps on, your ability. There's no caps on, anything in life. You can do whatever you want to do if you work for it. If you work hard, you put the reps in, and you do it smart, you're going to be successful. So I think you've just got to really aim big, dream big, and execute, and you can do whatever you want.
There we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Matty, thank you very much, mate. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Matt Spears, Evoke Capital. It's the gentleman of the mortgage game here with us today, mate. I appreciate you so much. You're such a fucking good fella. Thanks for spending some time with me, mate, and sharing your knowledge and your insights with us.
Welcome, mate. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you.